So tell us about your story is fascinating. You include that in the book. So give us the Chris M. Coursey story.
All right. Well, I grew up small Baptist church in central Illinois, and my mom would faithfully drive my siblings and I to church, no matter what. I mean, it could be ice, sleet, blizzard. We would get in my mom's little Dodge Omni, packed into this little car, and she would get us to church. So I come from a family that loves Jesus. We're going to church. So I really grew up with that foundation. No doubt in my mind, God is real. God is true. His word is true. That foundation was there, but there was something missing. And the thing that was missing that I can now identify looking back on is there wasn't a lot of joy. People weren't necessarily glad to be together. We were good at, putting in our time and doing the things we're supposed to be doing, but I felt disconnected. I didn't really feel like, these are my people. This is my community. And so that, unfortunately, some of those distortions impacted how I viewed God. I viewed God as a very angry God. And so I was always afraid to, I don't want to get too close to this God because I'm a bad Christian. He's going to get mad. I had my own woundedness, basically, kind of, those splinters really impacted my faith, Travis. And this thing called puberty hit, and I became a teenager, and I saw all my friends, they were going to church, they were doing, what they wanted to do. And so I kind of started drifting. Basically, I stopped going to church as I got older. And again, I wasn't just really connected with the community. Still believed God was real, but it was there was fear. I just don't want to get too close. I'm not gonna, he's disappointed me. What's the point? I can't do anything right here. That was my kind of lens, is how I was seeing God and how I was interpreting his word. So teenager years hit. I discover alcohol. I discover, partying in high school, and somehow still managed to get good grades. School always came easy for me. So I found my identity in partying. I became more social and even more outgoing when I was drinking, and I just liked who I was. I was just, didn't have the fear, just wasn't as much of an issue when I was drinking. And so that, made it into college. Things just kind of kept getting worse. And by the time I got into college, Travis, I got 2 DUIs within a year. And so driving under the influence, and I felt like my world just came crashing down right there. Just, wow, I'm a disappointment to God. Look what I've become. I'm a disappointment to my family. I'm just what's the point? What's the point here? And so the thing that really impacted me, there were a couple things that hit me at that time. And one of them was when my second DUI happened. My friends bailed me out of jail, and I just thought, I don't want to live. I just want my life to be over. And I basically looked up to the sky and yelled out, God, what do you want from me? I knew that somehow God is still in this, but I'm mad at him because I feel my life, I'm just such a failure. So look up, yell at God, what do you want from me? My friends just thought I was crazy. But I knew, even in the darkest moment, I knew, that God is still at work, but I'm mad at him because I don't feel like he's a resource. And in that moment, I had this image in my mind when I, was kind of yelling at God. I had this image of my mind of just the thought of Jesus standing close by with his arms out, kind of like I would with my son, saying, Chris, why are you running? Why are you fighting me? I just want you to come here. Why are you running from me? And it's what I would do with my sons. If my son was upset, well, come here, come here. I'll hug you. I'll hold you. Come here. And there was that image. And it was just a picture, but the thoughts were Jesus, why are you fighting me? I'm right here. I love you. I don't, I'm here. And I didn't tell my friends about that because I didn't quite know what to do with that. But I thought, what was that? I've never had that happen before. And shortly thereafter, I got a call from my aunt who works for a ministry in Indiana, and she's like, "Hey, how would you like to come do an internship with our ministry?" And I knew she worked with pretty intense stuff, people coming out of severe trauma. She helped people coming out of Satanism and the occult, pretty sex trafficking, really intense stuff. And she's like, why don't you come do an internship this summer? She's like, what else are you going to do? You can't drive anywhere. Like, why don't you just come and, answer phones, help us in the office, and observe sessions? This is a Christian ministry, so they pray with people and they work with severe trauma. And I thought, well, I don't have anything else to do, and here's the one opportunity I have. I guess I'll try this. So I get dropped off in Indiana at this ministry, and my role was just basically to help out, but they wanted me in the sessions just to observe, with the person's permission. I would just sit there and kind of watch basically while they worked with people. And I didn't know it at the time, Travis, but the first person that I was observing their ministry sessions, this was like their hardest client, like the toughest client they've ever had. And I didn't know that. Nobody told me that, but it was one of those deals where as they would start to pray with this person, as soon as they started praying, she would fall on the ground, writhing, and her face would contort and her voice would change. And it was like, there was something going on here. And I'm like, what is this? Like, I'm sitting there wide-eyed, and the prayer, the people are just praying for this woman. Lord, just, we take authority over that. We, Lord, comfort her. And like, they weren't fazed by the intensity and the, what I felt like was some pretty scary stuff happening. They weren't fazed. They're just, praying and staying present and comforting the woman. And I what we would do is we would end up taking breaks throughout the day. And every time it was time for a break, they would turn to look at me, and my chair was in the farthest corner of the room. Like, as far away,
sliding back?
I was sliding back. Like I don't know what this stuff is. I'm getting in the farthest corner of the room every time. Like, I would start out next to them. But my chair ended up in the farthest corner.
Oh,
so this was the pattern for 3 days. So 3 days I'm sitting here. Yep. So I'm sitting in the office, watching this ministry happen with this person, precious person, there's a lot going on there. And consistently my response is just to get as far away as humanly possible from, what's happening here. And yet I see people praying, and I see, there's obviously something more going on than meets the eye, because I could see, there'd be times the woman would try to bite them, but there was but she couldn't. Like, there was some invisible force stopping what was going on, and it wasn't phasing, any of the counselors. They were just rolling with it. So 3 days of this, Travis, and I thought, I am not cut out for this work. I don't know what this is. I hadn't heard about this in church. My sociology, psychology courses in school was not telling me about this stuff. I'm out of my depth. I'm out of my league here. So, that night I prayed, and I basically, kind of one of those desperation prayers where you just kind of send this desperate prayer, this postcard to God. And I said, God, I know you're here working. I can't deny it, but I think you made a mistake, because I don't think I'm supposed to be here. But I know enough, I've got this little bitty tiny faith. I know enough that I can only be here if you want me here. And if you want me here, I'll stay. Even if it kills me, I'll stay. But if you don't want me here, I'm leaving tomorrow. Like, I'm going to leave tomorrow. So there we go. Because I knew my colleagues would ask if I prayed about, my decision, because I was going to tell them the next day, I'm out of here. I don't know how I'm getting home because I don't have a license. I'll hitchhike or I'll walk. I'm just not going to stay. And I said the prayer, covered the base, turned off the light, and I every intention of going to sleep and waking up the next day and leaving. And as I was trying to fall to sleep, I kept having this thought, and this thought was just kind of bouncing in my mind like the old screensavers where you get a word on the screen and it just floats. You remember those?
Yeah.
Floating. That was this thought in my head, and it was a foreign thought. I didn't know what it was, but I couldn't go to sleep. I kept trying to fight this to go to sleep, and I couldn't go to sleep. And the thought was Isaiah 61. So it was like a word and a number, Isaiah 61. And I'm like, I grew up in the church, but we didn't really touch the Old Testament very much. So I didn't know what Isaiah 61 was. It just was like, what is this? What does this mean? It's a word and a number. And I thought, well, it sounds like something from the Bible, but I don't know what Isaiah 61 is. So I had the idea, turned on the light. I was like, I'll go find a Bible and I'll see if this is a Bible thought. And so I found a Bible on the shelf, and I opened up and just start looking at the books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and I'm going down the books. And then my hand stops when I see Isaiah, the prophet named Isaiah. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. And I could feel my butterflies in my stomach because I'm like, well, this is weird. And I'm like, well, surely there's not, 61 is a big number. There's probably not a 61 in this book, but I'll look. And so I find Isaiah and I start, going down, looking at the numbers, and the numbers are getting bigger, 10, 20, and 30. And I'm kind of like, wow, I could feel this, a little tension in my body as I'm seeing these numbers, 50, 60, 61. And then like my heart skips a beat, like, what is this? And I start reading it, the Spirit of the sovereign Lord God is upon me to preach good news to the poor, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives. And as I'm reading the words on this page, in my mind is like a Rolodex of images of what I'd been observing for those 3 days of that internship. They were preaching good news. And, the things that they were doing is a lot of what Isaiah 61 was talking about. And so I read the whole chapter and I thought, this is crazy. Well, let me get another Bible and I'll see if it's in that Bible too. So I found another Bible and a different version, and I found Isaiah 61 was in that Bible, and, words were, very similar. And I thought, okay, I can't take credit for this because, I would take credit for something like this and just discount it. But I was like, I can't take credit for this because I didn't know Isaiah 61 was even in the Bible. So I got on my knees and I had the thought, I think God's talking to me. I got to pay attention to this. And so got on my knees and just said, okay, God, I think you want me to stay, and I will stay. Like, even if this kills me, I'll stay because I want to be where you want me to be. And if you want me here, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm way out of my league, but I'll stay. And so the next morning, I just kind of had to humbly share with with my colleagues, like, you guys, this stuff is pretty weird. I don't really understand it. In fact, I'm, it's kind of scary what I'm experiencing here with this work. But I prayed last night. And I asked Jesus just, to either, show me if he wanted me to stay or I was leaving. And I had this thought, and I said, the thought was Isaiah 61. And I was like, that's in the Bible. And when I said Isaiah 61, I saw their faces like start smiling. And I'm like, what? Why are they smiling? So after I shared that, they're like, well, Chris, this is funny because when we prayed about our mission statement from the Lord, a while back, it was Isaiah 61 is our mission statement. Like that is what we felt like God is saying, this is the work I want you to do. And so they just were delighted to hear my story. And I thought, okay, well, I think I'm going to stay. And I don't, I don't understand this stuff, but I stayed and I started reading the Bible, and I went from Mr. Partier to, okay, you know what? Like, God is in this place, and his word is like, this is just amazing. Like Jesus is like right here. And it just changed my life. So I went back to school after I went back because I had one more year of school, and I went back a changed man after that summer. I started carrying a Bible around. I started talking about Jesus to all my friends. All my friends thought I was crazy because I was Mr. Partier. Now I'm talking about Jesus and reading the Bible. And I just wanted to share with everybody, like, there's a fire was lit in me that I want the whole world to understand that, yeah, I saw a lot of crazy, evil stuff that summer with people coming out of some really dark stuff, but I saw God working and I saw his light shine into that darkness, and it changed people's lives, like profoundly miraculous. Like, God showed up for people who had been through some really scary stuff. I just wanted the world to know that, Travis, and that put me on the course to, here 25 years later, here I am, doing things I never anticipated or expected I would be doing. And so the joy switch has come out of a very long time of, working with a guy by the name of Jim Wilder, looking at how the brain works and looking at scripture from a very relational perspective. And I never would have predicted that I would be here and we would be talking about this stuff, so many years later.